and beyond.
And with that, of course, we welcome you inside of the afternoon drive time right here on New Era TT Radio. And of course, inside of the drive time, this is our drive time exchange with none other than journalist extraordinaire, Mr. Tony Fraser. Tony, great afternoon to you. How are you doing?
I am doing fine. How are you going, Charlo?
I am good.
Right. What about the car?
The car, going. That is it.
You have to depend on the insurance there, boy.
Yeah, that is it. Either
another story.
Either that or I have to go and look for the man who passing, saying old battery buying and that kind of thing, you know. Scrap metal.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, listen, as the promo has indicated, we're talking about an old subject which we've been hoping to make a new and relevant and lively subject in practical terms for a long time in Trinidad and Tobago. I see my good friend, Dr. Oliana Poon, up on the screen here. Oliana, how are you? I think your microphone is off.
Yeah, he's muted.
Yes, it's great to be here. Thank you very much. All is well and wonderful.
Right. So we started talking about tourism back in the Issues Live days. That was the 1980s into the 1990s.
Oh my gosh. Many moons ago.
Yeah. Well, that dates me. You were a young child at that point in time, so you're still wonderful.
That's kind of you. Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah. So we want to focus on Tobago. I see a gentleman called Kevon. Tell us something about yourself, Kevon.
Okay, hi, I'm Kevon Wilson. I'm the senior analyst at Leve Global. This is the firm that Dr. Oliana Poon leads, and I'm one of the tourism consultants with them as well.
Yeah. I think I remember you. I was in contact with you some time ago. Yeah.
Yes.
I was trying to place you, but it now makes sense. Welcome to the program.
Oi. Thank you.
All right. Charlo, who else is in the room there? We're expecting some other people. That is Reginald McLean.
Yeah, Reginald
Sorry about
McLean.
that,
Mr. McLean.
Reginald McLean is the new president of the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association, correct?
That's correct, Tony.
Yep. Wonderful.
Afternoon, Oliana.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Long time no see.
Yes.
And we also expect Diane Haddad. Is she there also?
No, not as yet.
All right. So when they come in, we will change. There's going to be an exchange at 5 o'clock. McLean has to go off to a meeting, and his deputy, Mr. Sipasad Singh, Rene Sipasad Singh, will take over from him. So, folks, let's start the conversation from the point of, I don't know, maybe seeing that it's not my livelihood, maybe I have got a little bit tired of it, talking about tourism and talking about possibilities in Trinidad and Tobago. And I don't know if that is too cynical. So let me start with the Tourism and Hotel Association. They can't become cynical like I do. Like Oleano, like Kevon, that's their living. I can make a little living outside of that. But are you hopeful? Let's start at the point of a political position, but not making it political in the sense of party politics. Well, I know that central government has changed, and the Tobago House of Assembly, of course, is still in place, and there is a quality relationship, it seems, between the government in Port of Spain and the THA in Scarborough. So is there hope on that basis, Reginald McLean?
Well, you know, Tobago has always been a bit of a political football between Trinidad and Tobago, which is unfortunate because Tobago could be a good driving force for diversification of the economy. Um, Tobago holds a lot of riches for tourism, uh, you know, and we hope that what has just gone on with the political landscape in both Trinidad and Tobago, that we can actually move tourism forward without too much of the politics that have plagued it in the past. And I think the Tobago House of Assembly and central government are keen and willing to work together to make this happen. I mean, that's what we are seeing around the table right now. I am back in Tobago after a few years of absence, and I am now the president of the association. So we are hoping to make a big change and to get tourism finally back on a steady foot and get the occupancy figures back up in the hotels and guest houses and bed and breakfast, etc. And, you know, try and get back some of what we've lost. We're down to 2024, 24,500 international passengers into Tobago compared to just over 90,000 several years ago. So we've had a major decline in tourism. Um, and I think now is the time to beat the iron while it's hot and get everybody involved. We are now re-energized to make the important steps forward. So that's kind of our goal at this point, to re-energize, get it moving, and get Tobago back to where it needs to be, and get Tobago even further than where it used to be, and get it get some more hotel rooms on the island, etc. Because once we get the hotel rooms full, everybody else is going to enjoy the spoils, as so to say.
What of the relationship between the association and the Tobago, what's it called? Tobago Tourism Association. What of the relationship? I know the president was changed some time ago, president or chairman, whatever the title is, some time ago, and a new person, I think it's Dahlia Jerry, has come into office. Is there a relationship there?
Well, I mean, our organization is the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Organization Association, and we had our annual general meeting back in the early part of April, where Alpha Lord was the outgoing president, and I've replaced Alpha in the association. Alpha is still on the board as well, and we are the ones trying to get Tobago back with our new board back into full swing and really try to beef tourism up here. So the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association is really the association in Tobago to try and put Tobago back together.
But I'm talking about the assembly-led, assembly established
Okay, so
Tobago.
we have a couple different things. You have the Division of Tourism, you have the Tobago Tourism
Association.
TTAL,
Yeah.
so which is
That's the one that I'm
marketing.
talking about.
Right. So
Because as I
TTAL is
understand it, the Assembly's initiatives are channeled through that association.
right through TTAL. So
Yeah.
TTAL is the marketing arm for tourism in Tobago. So we are working very closely with TTAL, with the Tobago House of Assembly, and we are trying to get TTAL on board completely with us, where we work hand in hand together. We don't want any fractures anywhere around. We want everybody to form one symbiotic relationship and move forward and get Tobago going. So we have approached the TTAL already. We are now looking at the chief secretary and the secretary for tourism, so that we can try and make this relationship work and be fruitful for everybody. You have other other committees within within the Tobago House of Assembly as well. You have the festivals committee and various other committees. So we want to try and get a gel with everybody so we can move smoothly forward.
Okay, so we're going to come back to you to talk about the main agenda items going forward. But let me ask Dr. Poole to give a perspective. Again, I don't want to involve you in the politics. When I want to talk politics, I invite politicians. But what do you think of the climate, a fresh start to whatever the party is? Do you think that augurs well for perhaps a new approach, an enlightened approach, seeing the possibilities of tourism for the island and for the country?
Well, tourism now is being seen as a necessity. I mean, it's an amazing industry. It's growing globally. I mean, we had 1.4 billion travelers in the world last year. This industry generates $2 trillion in revenue. We don't need a lot of it, but it creates employment, it creates jobs, it creates entrepreneurial opportunities. And I think we need to take the bull by the horn and start seeing tourism as a serious opportunity. Yes, we've had oil. They say oil don't spoil, but oil has spoiled a lot of us. But tourism is business. It's big business, and we need to capture some of that business for ourselves, for our country, for our people. And going forward, we need tourism to really sustain lives and livelihoods like never before.
I am sure, Dr. Poole, that you must have spoken to all of the regimes who have been in office over the decades. What is it that withholds their enthusiasm from it? Maybe it's the oil spoil now, because I think everybody should recognize that the oil spoil now. But what holds them back? Is it that they don't see the kind of possibilities that you talk about?
I think one of the issues is that because we have been late in tourism, we've always looked at others and looked at tourism as Barbados, flat, nice beaches. So in a Trinidad perspective, for example, we've never really seen Trinidad as a gold mine for tourism, which it is. Because what has happened is that we are still in the 50s when we think about tourism. The days when people traveled, they went for sun, sand, and sea, stayed in the same type of hotels, took the same kind of photographs, wrote the same kind of postcards. We're still in that old kind of mode. Now think, that is 70 years ago. The children, the grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren of those travelers are not doing what they did. The travelers today want to experience, they want to go out, they want to enjoy, they want to live like a local. They're not just coming to eat McDonald's. They want to do different types of things. And I think our opportunity is the opportunity, because we are still authentic, still natural, still haven't been, run over by mass tourism. We have a great opportunity to do it differently and to launch a kind of tourism that the world is really looking for. And I think we need, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Yeah, and I think we need to stop this old time thinking about if the beach is not flat, if the water is not tourism. No. And this is why actually we've only seen Tobago as a tourism opportunity, but I really honestly believe also that Trinidad is a gold mine for tourism. Think of all of the beaches that Trinidad has. Manzanilla can become one of the top locations, for example, to heal a lot of people walking along the beaches and using the natural environment. And while we focus tourism on Tobago, I think tourism is business. And a lot of the tourism is really, the government plays a significant role in the entire industry. And I think we as businesses have to come to the party too, because when you think about it, our whole industry is subsidized. We have some of the lowest energy costs in the entire region. We have some of the lowest utility costs in the entire region. Our transportation is subsidized. When we go from Trinidad to Tobago, it's a subsidized price we pay. When we take the boat, it's subsidized. So, and the government looks after almost everything on the country, on the island, whether it's the botanical gardens, whether it's all of the tourist attractions, whether it's the beaches and the lifeguards and everything else. And the businesses really have to come to the party, really have to up its ante. And yes, our hotel association, McLean mentioned that we have to get back to it. But do you know why Tobago did so well? You remember Ivan in Grenada? They had no choice but to come to Tobago. But what has happened since? And I say Ivan is the best thing to happen to Grenada. Forgive me for saying that, but they've rebuilt and they have fantastic properties, fantastic. I mean, it's just an amazing destination. The people who came to Tobago are not coming back. And I think in Tobago, we have our Trinidad market is a curse and a blessing. We are probably the only destination that could boast about a nice, lovely market right next to us, cheap to get to, the Trinidad market. But are the properties and the outputs that we are putting out for the Trinidad market capable of addressing the international market? And how do we get the international market? And at the end of the day, we don't know who our customers are. We still have a philosophy of build it and they will come. Build the hotels and they will come. Build the airport and they will come. It doesn't happen like that. And unless we are capable, now tourism is business and we need information, we need intelligence, we need technology to really run it. So it's not like any old thing anymore. Long time you could have built anything and they'll come, but today it's different. How do we engage with the technology? How do we link these things?
Okay. So we're going to come back to that subject in a moment. And some things are on my mind with regard to what Dr. Puna said. But let's go to Kevin to hear his views on what we're talking about, tourism in Tobago. And I know Dr. Poon wants to talk about tourism in Trinidad, and I am not averse to that. We can surely talk about that. But let's focus for the moment on Tobago. Kevin, you're there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, let's hear your opening piece.
Well, I think both Mr. McLean and Dr. Poon hit on some important points. And I know recently it was announced that for the month of May, there was a deficit of some $1.42 billion and that the treasury is drying up and that we are looking for other opportunities to raise revenue. And I think tourism...
I don't think, Kevin, it's drying up anymore. It's dry.
All the fumes have gone. That's what our Honorable Prime Minister said. We're not running on fumes anymore. The fumes have dissipated. But I think if you look at, let's look at one of the oil-rich regions, look at Dubai. For instance, their oil sector historically has contributed about 30% to their GDP. Today, and I'm talking about 2024 data, their oil sector contributed 1%, and tourism is now contributing 20% to the GDP. So they are earning more foreign exchange, more dollars and cents from tourism than they are from oil. And I think that is a lesson that we need to to learn. And we are, as Dr. Poon said, have really become overly dependent on oil, overly dependent on the subsidies, and we have, quite frankly, become a little bit lazy, if I might say so. And when you look at some of the other destinations, Jamaica, Barbados, Grenada, and so on, I mean, tourism is a necessity for them. If they don't get it right, they don't put food on the table. And so we need to really begin to see tourism as not just a luxury, something nice to run away to Tobago when you have a long weekend or when you have some special holiday. But we need to see tourism as a vital engine of growth for our economy, for the Trinidad and Tobago economy. And I think that is where the mindset shift needs to take place. That tourism isn't just a nice thing to do, it is actually a necessity. And part of the challenge is that Tobago has Trinidad, Trinidad has oil. And when you look at many of the businesses that are operating in Tobago, many of them, the tourism business is not their main business. I mean, when you really think about whether it's the Grafton, whether it's even our property we have our own property in Tobago, being estate villas, that is not our main business. Our main business is consultancy. So many of the property owners, not all, but many of them, many of the significant ones, tourism isn't their only source of income. And that is part of the challenge. This dependency on other industries, tourism is not a necessity. It is a nice thing to do. And we have to really shift our mindset, and really and truly, tourism can become the engine of economic growth for our Twin Island state, because and it has a greater trickle-down impact than oil. Anyone who has any type of skill can get involved in the tourism business, whether it's a hair braider, someone who can do massages, someone who can give a tour, whether it's someone who has a camera and can take pictures and upload pictures on social media. You have so many travel influencers popping up all around. So tourism really gives opportunities to a wide cross-section of the economy, and the trickle-down is far more significant than the oil sector. We don't need CPEP programs to trickle down oil money. That's what is happening. We need tourism dollars to really trickle down to the rural communities, to the individuals in our society.
Okay, so let me go to the tourism president to talk about the possibilities on the ground with regard to hotel plant. That has always been a concern, whether we have sufficient and the right type of hotel plant on the ground to accommodate people. I don't know what the accommodation rate is like these days, but are we, the question may very well be is that we perhaps have too much accommodation for too few tourists coming onto the island. Mr. McLean.
Tony, I wouldn't say it's too much accommodation. It's always a chicken and egg situation. You need more rooms to get the flights. So the airlines turn around and tell you don't have enough room stock in the island to make it viable for us to drop a plane in your airport. So Oleana made thing about build it and they will come. So we just built a very nice terminal building at Crown Point Airport, and it can accommodate 3 million passengers a year. When the truth of the fact is, between domestic tourism and foreign tourism last year, we did about 65,000 people. So we have a big shortcoming, and the shortcoming is the number of rooms. The rooms we have in Tobago, since COVID, a lot of people have not updated their rooms. So we still have a problem where the room stock has to get a lot better to get the international passengers in. Again, these are the things that we have to deal with the politicians, with the people who make the laws, who approve the things, to be able to get us to invest more in our plant and get our plant up to standard. Once you get that, you're going to get the better tourists coming into Tobago. But the bottom line is, if you can't get the planes coming into your island, you're not going to get the tourists. So no matter how nice and fancy an airport is, you have to get the planes to bring the people. The other thing I would like to comment on that is we have
So before you move off of that, who's responsible for that? Who's responsible for attracting the tourists to the island? I know we have gone through arguments about government involved in terms of the advertising because it's a high cost, etc., etc. What's the state of play with that?
okay, you have situations of Trinidad and you have situations of Tobago where you have to have destination marketing. Not just the hotel and guest houses and then marketing their products, but destination marketing is something of great value. And unfortunately, that has to come from the public coffers. You're not going to expect a small hotel to go and put $3 million into their budget to market because they're not going to have that kind of fund sitting around. So the government has to have a big say in that. What we are looking at, we pay room tax. Every client that comes to stay in a hotel, a guest house, etc., pays a 10% room tax. That room tax goes into the consolidated fund of the country. Is that fair to the people who are making that tourism 10%? That should go, some of it, if not all, should go to marketing of the destination, whether it be Trinidad or whether it be Tobago. So we're not begging for something. We are creating this by getting the people to come to our island and spend their money and pay the room tax. All we are asking for is a stake in the room tax so that we can market the destination. Destination Tobago, destination Trinidad. If we can get the marketing, the word gets out there, you get more tourists coming to your island. More tourists means more flights. More flights, the tourists are here, the hotels, the guest houses are going to upgrade what they need to upgrade. We're then going to attract a better class of tourists coming into our islands. So again, it's a chicken and egg. We need money, and let us get some of the money from our room tax to do the marketing of the destination.
I read
And
something a couple of weeks ago about the bed and breakfast sector outstripping the hotels in terms of accommodation, providing accommodation, not only for foreign tourists, but tourists, if you want to call them that, coming from Trinidad. What
I
of that?
don't agree, Tony. I don't agree with that at all. Um, all accommodation sectors in Tobago are down right now because of a lack of Airbridge and Seabridge to a certain extent. So I don't buy into that at all. But what I would like to see is our former BWIA, which is now Caribbean Airlines. When you think of our national airline has built the tourism product on many, many islands in the Caribbean and has always left Tobago with the dregs. All we are asking for is give Tobago something where it is a workable proposition for flights to come into Tobago, and it's going to start to turn around. People are going to argue with me and say, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah,
But the reality is,
Reginald, on that score, I listen to what people like yourself say, and I listen and read what the BWI, sorry, Caribbean Airlines people say, and they claim that flights between Trinidad and Tobago are running half empty. So where's the
well,
reality?
but again, I'm going to explain that, and you're going to be shocked when I tell you what the problem is. Try and book a flight on Caribbean Airlines to come to Tobago. It's almost impossible. The booking system is not working. We have a problem where people are blocking seats. So if I want to come to Tobago on Friday, but I'm not sure if I may be able to come on Wednesday, I may book seats for myself and my family on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The bottom line at that is one of those days I use it. I can't cancel the other tickets that I have, right? But I can use those tickets again for a $50 fee. So if I can't cancel a ticket on CAL, it shows up in their system that the seat is booked. Try and cancel it. It's almost impossible, right? But not
So
only that, when you have a change fee of 50 TT dollars, is that right? No other airline does that. You have a no-show fee. It remains $50. If you no-show on a flight, it should become zero. And if we start fixing these little things on the Airbridge, all of a sudden you're going to see that flights are available and we're not going to have an issue. We have another issue
So
where
has you,
that-
sorry,
no, no,
has there
hold on
been
1 second, Tony.
conversation?
We have
Just
another
hang on 1 second
situation.
on this particular matter. Has there been conversation around this subject between people like yourself in the association and the Caribbean Airlines?
There has been conversation all through the years to try and fix the systems, right? And it just has not happened. Now that I'm president of the association, we are going to be approaching Caribbean Airlines again and saying, listen, we need these things sorted out. If I need a ticket to Tobago, I could call somebody in the airport, and for $100, I can get a ticket to fly to Tobago. I mean, $100 extra, right? So there's a little bit of back trading going on as well. And these are the little things that need to be repaired in the system for it to work, right?
Yeah. You were going on to say something else.
Right. I'm trying to get back my train of thought on that. But you have a situation where I booked today, I can't make it on Friday. I cannot cancel my flight, right? But my ticket is still good. That is a big, big problem. The next problem is, why are we subsidizing all the flights to Tobago? I know I'm going to get flack for saying this. We subsidize the ferry service. Why must we subsidize the Airbridge service? If the cost of a ticket to fly to Tobago is $600, so be it. Let it become $600. Now, what I was going to say just now was, since COVID, right, we have not gotten back the flights that we had. So you have a client that flies into Trinidad on an international flight, and our latest flight now is 9:40, I believe it is. Whereas before, you would have a later flight that would mop up all those people to bring them to Tobago to come and enjoy tourism in Tobago. So the schedules have not happened. They just have not come back, because Cal now is taking the planes and going up the islands, the smaller planes. When there's a breakdown, Tobago loses out. So every time there's a problem, Tobago loses out. We've built tourism in Barbados, Antigua, and all these places using our national airline. When our national airline goes bankrupt, who pays for it? Me, the taxpayer, you, the taxpayer. So why not make Tobago the beneficiary of something like that? And if you do that, all of a sudden the occupancy rates are going to start going up, because we're going to get the marketing dollars from the 10% room tax, and Tobago is going to start to boom. And then you're going to call and say, well, I can't get a flight because Tobago is booming. But we're not going to get the boom until we could fix a few of these little simple things that are there to fix.
So Oliana, intervene in this thing, because logic tells me if all that has been said by Mr. McLean is true, then and all that has been said over many years, many decades, really, talking about tourism and talking to hoteliers, and the solutions seem so logical, perhaps not simple, but logical. And why haven't we gone to adopting some of those solutions that have been put forward?
All right, but Tony, before you all go forward, we have Miss Haddad also there.
Okay. Diane has come in. You're there?
She's been there for a while, actually.
All right. Let's see your face.
I'm not sure if it's you, but it's saying camera is unavailable. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, well, I am seeing your name now. Next thing is to see your face.
I'm not getting to get. I was asking to send the password so I could have done it from the computer, because I'm not getting the camera on. I don't know why.
Okay. So Charles could probably
Tony,
deal with that.
Tony, 1 second
Sure.
before Oliana comes on. One other thing I would like to point out. You know, we had a state of emergency issued on the 30th of December of last year. It was cancelled on the 13th of April of this year. To date, nothing has been issued to all of our consulates and embassies and all that all over the world to let those countries know that our SOE is finished. British Airways right now is trying to do marketing of Tobago, and until they get formal notice of this, they're not prepared to go forward with their marketing campaigns. Monday gone here, not yesterday, last week Monday, the US put out another level 3 level 3 travel advisory on Trinidad and Tobago. And if you read deep into that, what you find in there, they're talking about terrorism. Where in this country do we have terrorism? Come on. So when we get these advisories that are happening along with a state of emergency, how are we going to build our tourism product? So we need proper relations with the international countries that we are dealing with, like the US, Canada, the UK. Because when these travel advisories come out, it is the biggest, what do you call
Deterrent.
it? Deterrence of people coming in on our island. I got a phone call from a friend of mine on Monday night. That advisory came out Monday morning, and he said, I just got my first cancellation. You see how quick it works?
Yeah.
All right,
Excuse
let's
me,
go
guys.
to Oleana.
Excuse me 1 minute, Tony. So, Tony, we'll have to do Miss Arad with the audio because there's nothing I can do from my end here because everybody's on the same setting, you know. So you'll talk to her via the audio. We'd have to not worry about the camera.
Okay, all right, fine. So when I call your name, whether you see yourself on camera or not.
Yeah, but once you talk to her,
no,
she will
it's
hear
your
you and
turn.
she will So go ahead.
Yes, Sir Charles.
Yeah. So once you talk to her, she will respond.
Wonderful. Yes, so Oleana, you heard the heap of troubles that have been
You're on mute,
expressed.
Oriana.
How do we get to dealing with these matters, which all of them seem not terribly difficult to deal with?
You are on mute.
Sorry, one of the issues is that we want to have our cake and eat it. One of the reasons for the low prices between Trinidad and Tobago and the $50 charge, which was a big deal to get in, is that, you know, nobody wants to be a disadvantage to Tobagonians coming to Trinidad and all of these things. But at the end of the day, tourism is business. Too many people are not able to come to Tobago because they cannot get flights. And in addition, I think we have to get to international standards. You no-show, you lose your ticket to start with. And secondly, we need to have the interlining agreements so that when you book with British Airways or whoever, if you land in Trinidad, you can connect to Tobago through the flight. So I think that's a very important point. Now, Reginald also made a point about, yes, we need a lot of hotels. And yes, we do. But I think we really need to we really need to go out and get the types of properties that suit our destination and our vision for where tourism wants to go. There are tons of hotel operators internationally. Some of them are just focused on sustainability. Some of them are doing different kinds of things. So we cannot put ourselves in a box into thinking that one type of hotel will do or one type of investor. And I think what we need to proactively do is to go out and sell the destination, not only to travelers, but to investors as well.
Okay. Diane Haddad. It's difficult to keep Diane quiet. So Diane, what's your contribution to start with?
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, at least you don't have my face to deal with, so we could deal with the voice. I want to say a couple of things that I must say I agree and disagree with outright. Tourism is something which is a part of an economic package that the country has to decide if we're in the business. Just like oil, as Oleana was saying, and she's been good at rhyming this afternoon. So even if the oil spoil, we should have had other things to bump up off. We have not been able to do that because we kept just in the dependency syndrome of the oil. Reggie has been in this business for a number of years, but disappointingly, Reggie, I'm hearing you speak as if we are still in the 1980s or 90s as to what the need is. And some of the things are a little bit unfair from the perspective of the people who reside on the island. So I want to cover a couple of those things. Tourism is necessary for our economy to actually boost and boom and grow and go, because it's the while people say it's the lowest hanging fruit for Tobago, it actually is the hardest thing for us to work on because it involves a lot of spend and infrastructure. So there's a lot of costs involved. We have played with it over the last 30 years, 40 years. We have really not gone into it as a business. And hence, the business owners, as Kevon was saying, you know, people don't put their heart and soul in it because it's not their main source of income. The business owners cannot invest in something that they are not seeing as a whole for the country. The government has to make those decisions because transport, connectivity, marketing, all of it is very important for that business to succeed. Without that, that business cannot succeed. We can't just all put up hotels and go out there and say, come to Tobago. I have attended investment conferences with the THA, and the investors have a very poor impression of us as to the standard of doing business, the lack of ease of doing business, and we are quite jokey in terms. So they scorn us at those investment conferences at this stage, which is sad. However, even with the investment conference and people, we go out there and we tell them how great our electricity rates are and all these subsidies. They are not attractive to them because they get different concessions in different islands and countries in order to bring their product. And so we have to play the game, I guess, a little bit better now, where tourism covers all levels of the tourists. So not just the high end, not medium, not the backpackers alone, but we have something that offers a holistic approach. I want to deal with the airlift, Reggie.
Diane, before you move off that point, I hear you saying something. I'm not sure if that is what you're saying, but there's a certain kind of assistance to the tourists coming in, the airlines, etc., getting concessions from the national economy, which do not return the kinds of favors that are required to the national economy. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so I remember Tony being at a conference in the Dominican Republic, Chicos, a couple of years ago. And one of the countries, it was Haiti at the time, the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Haiti, the tourism minister, said that Haiti was given a 50-year tax-free break to any hotel coming to invest in Haiti. And I'm not saying that people are supposed to get all these breaks. What I'm saying is Haiti is in a bad place, or was at a bad place, let's call it that. And they did something to make people want to come there to invest. Unfortunately, we are a very cocky society with our attitudes, and we think we seem to have something that is more special here than it is in any part of the world. And the first thing I want to say is that myth we need to get out of. We need to recognize that we are on land space that represents another part of the universe, and it has specialty in every part of this world why people go to it. So we need to be a little bit more realistic as to why we take the approaches we take. Okay. If I go now to the airlift, the Airbridge, Reggie is correct, since COVID-19, the Airbridge, Cal has not put back on the number of flights that we were accustomed to, which was 23 rotations for the day. I think either 23 or 20, and 26 on Fridays and Sundays and so. They are down to 13 or something like that, and we are at a disadvantage for the number of people that can actually come here when the day comes. So those 13 rotations or whatever are actually full. Each one, I fly up and down. The other thing that we need to be clear of is we can't just say, and we've had debates about this over and over, the people of Tobago are entitled to the facilities in Trinidad, and therefore they have to be subsidized. You cannot tell somebody who has to go down for x-rays or dialysis or any medical or any business that they must take a boat and spend 4.5 hours on the boat to get to Port of Spain, get their medical, get whatever, and then spend that time to come back up. So when we want to speak about this airfare, we need to look at the rights of the citizens of the island first before we get into what tourism demand there is. And we had come from that place, and that's where they went from $300 to $400, right? And then the other ask was the penalty fee. So all of those things were compromises made over the last number of years to get us to try and alleviate what Reggie was speaking about, which is the back road to getting flights on. So disappointing. I'm very disappointing to hear that he said people take $100 extra to get a ticket. I have never heard or encountered that myself. And I find that to be very interesting, that comment that we are accusing the staff at CAL to collect $100 extra to get a booking.
Okay.
So,
Well, just to inform our listeners that we are talking tourism in Tobago in particular. It does not leave out tourism in Trinidad. And there are some matters that I want to get other people in. This business of concessions to airlines, to investors, hotel operators, and so on. Can we operate an industry profitably and talk about these concessions to investors and others? I haven't heard Kevin in a little while, so let me hear you start off on that.
Well, as Dr. Poon said earlier, we are one of the most subsidized destinations in the Caribbean region. So that in itself is a form of concession. But the question is, even with those subsidies, we are still not competitive.
nobody wants to
We are
come.
still not attracting the people to come here. We are still not attracting the investors with our cheap energy, our cheap utilities, and so on. And then, of course, you have the other element to add, these 40 and 50-year tax-free breaks that a lot of different hotels or investors are getting elsewhere in the Caribbean. The question is that the road that we need to really go down? That is the question that we need to be asking. And are we buyers or are we takers, in the sense that someone comes to invest in Trinidad and Tobago, and simply because they have a wad of money to invest, we accept them? Or are we actually going out with a list of the kind of people we want to attract, the kind of investors that we want to attract? So whether we're looking for sustainable brands, whether we are looking for leisure brands, whatever the case may be, who are we targeting? Who are we going behind? I think that is the question that we need to be answering even before we start going down the road of concessions and so on. And just going back to something that Mr. McLean said, and Dr. Poon also alluded to it. In the, I would say, 2004, 2005, arrivals to Tobago was booming. Part of it was Ivan, because those who were going to Grenada and so on had to find somewhere else to go. But I think something very critical happened in that period. I don't know if you remember, Hilton Hotel pulled out of Tobago at that time. And after Hilton Hotel pulled out, the number of arrivals, international arrivals to Tobago, plummeted significantly, and it has not gone back up to this day. And one of the missing ingredients in Tobago right now is that we have no branded hotels, none at all. So the question is, we need to find not just branded hotels for branded hotels' sake, but we need to find the right kind of branded hotels to bring to the island, whether it's Apple Leisure brand, and I know they're doing well around the Caribbean. I see Turks and Caicos launch another Amman resort recently. So what are the kind of brands? And Dr. Poon would have said this many times, Tobago is a 5-star destination. We have all of the right ingredients in terms of what God has put on it. The question is, what are we as locals, as investors, as the government, what are we putting on it? So, okay, great, we have a wonderful airport that was recently built. That's a start. But the question is, are we getting the right investors, the right developers, the right brands to come to Tobago to attract. So it's a chicken and egg situation. So the brands like Apple Leisure, for example, so whether it's Breathless or Zoetry and so on, they have their machinery, their customer base, they have the airlines that come with them as well. And they pull customers. Hilton pull customers. Sandals, wherever they are, they pull customers. And the airlines then align with these brands. And they know that these are reputable brands and they're bringing the customers. So there's an easier chance of them doing business with us. So it's a chicken and egg. So it's a number of different elements that are missing that we need to really work together simultaneously.
Yeah. I want to hear Oleana and Reginald talk about what I'm getting to be a kind of subsidized industry all around. And I don't know who benefits in the end from that. I saw some figures some time ago about Barbados and the Bahamas, really great tourism destinations in the Caribbean. But they're leaving behind, the tourist is leaving behind something like 10 cents and 5 cents out of every dollar. So everybody else benefits except the local industry. So let me hear Oleana and Reginald on this business of the subsidies that the industry seems to need, or what is required.
All right. Well, Tony, you know I have to leave shortly. So
Right.
I want to
So
touch on something that Diane said just now first. When I refer to getting rid of the subsidy on Caribbean Airlines on the domestic route, why it is that we can't, if that is the case and you want to keep a subsidy, have a couple flights during the day subsidized for the people who need to get down to Trinidad for business and all that. But the reality is having the subsidy is a negative to Tobago. It's not yes, the people of Tobago, and I am a people of Tobago as well because I live here, right? We all enjoy it, but at the end of the day, it does create a problem. We have a very good ferry service that takes 3 hours or just under 3 hours of actual transit time to back and forth, which is heavily subsidized. So, you know, we keep subsidizing and subsidizing, but at the end of the day, the negative of it is the negative fallout to business and to growing the economy. And really and truly, Tobago depends on the tourism economy. You know, so we really have to pound that one and try and sit down. And I know that it took a long time to get the $50 penalty. It took a long time to get the fares to where they were. And everybody wants this subsidy. But the reality is, you know, we have to start moving away from subsidies. So if you want to take 2 or 3 or 4 flights in the middle of the day or early morning and afternoon for the subsidies, but you have to have things where you're going to the doctor, you're going to the Board of Inland Revenue in Trinidad or whatever and deal with these issues. So that is things that we need to correct, and it is the government to correct these things. But at the end of the day, Caribbean Airlines is our airline. When it goes bust, we, our tax-paying dollars, pay for it. Take Tobago and make Tobago's tourism work. Give us the interline linkages between the flights that are coming into Port of Spain so that we can get those international flight connections and make them into Tobago. And all of a sudden, you're going to see things start to change. Make it to where I could easily go online and cancel my ticket. Give me a 48-hour window in which if I cancel less than 48 hours, my ticket becomes null and void. And all of a sudden, people are going to start traveling properly, right? Because they know that they're going to lose their $200 ticket if they don't cancel within 48 hours. So all of these are little things that we are asking for. Give Tobago back some of the flights that we've lost, right? Give us back something that we could work on. It's going to continuously be a chicken and egg situation until that is sorted out.
Okay. Reginald McLean, who is the new president of the Hotel and Tourism Association in Tobago. Thank you very much for participating. And I know that your vice president will replace you now and continue the conversation. Rene Sipasad Singh.
Thank you very much.
Right. Is he there yet in the room? Whenever he comes in.
Yeah, he is there. I'm just letting him in now.
Okay, good. So to our listeners, we are talking about tourism. We're hearing all of the difficulties and also the potential of the industry to create jobs. We all know, and it has been said by economists, by everybody's involved in the industry, is that tourism caters for everyone, from the taxi driver, the people selling stuff at the airport, the hotels, the guest houses, etc., etc. And the question that I would like Oleana Poon, an economist, to come into is this question of building an industry on the basis of subsidy. It seems as if we are talking about this from every side of the possibility of tourism.
Well, for a lot of international investors, you name any one of them, they definitely want subsidies. And part of it, well, tax breaks, let's say. We're not talking about the subsidies from the governments and so, but the tax breaks that people are looking for, it has become the lowest common denominator, basically, because if they're bringing, let's say, a 5 or 6-star brand, they can't be expected to pay all of these duties and taxes to set up the actual hotel. I mean, it'll be almost impossible to make any money from it. So for a lot of properties, a lot of hotel investors, and I think whichever hotel you get to establish in Tobago, they will be needing and wanting tax breaks to at least bringing duty-free concessions on whatever they need to build their 5-star or 6-star product at the end of the day. But the key thing is the occupancy rates that are generated and all of those other benefits. Now, and this is why it's really important, the choice of investor that you attract. And this is why for countries like Trinidad and Tobago, we need to figure out in Tobago, what is the vision we have for this tourism? Where is tourism going to go? What is one going to wake up in 50 years and see in terms of tourism? And where's the master plan? Where are the hotels going to go? And I think it's really important to have that kind of transparency that investors and everybody knows this is where we are going. And we're talking a lot about investments, but I think what we're not talking enough about are people, the capacity and the skills that we need to build to ensure that things don't just trickle down, but people can actually have businesses, small, medium, and large businesses built on a successful tourism industry. And I think small things. How many people in Tobago or Trinidad can actually swim? Far less for dive, surf, stand-up paddling, and all of the things people do when they come on holiday. What we find is a trend that people are spending more and more outside of the hotel than inside the hotel. And possibly that's why the cruise lines and the all-inclusives try to capture everything in terms of all of the tourist spend. But think that a customer is spending more money outside of a hotel on activities like diving, sailing, surfing, adventuring, helicopter tours, what have you. What are we doing to capacitate our young people to be able to take advantage of and to become involved at the higher level of entrepreneurship in this industry? And I think these are the kinds of things that we need to start building on. We're talking about attracting investors, but how are we building the capacity among our youth and our people to really benefit from the spoils of the tourism industry, both in Trinidad and in Tobago?
Oleana, you're edging close to something that Dr. Vanus James said on this program 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was talking about not so much the physical aspects of the industry in Tobago, going to the hotel, getting bacon shark, whatever, those kinds of things. But he's talking about the service industry that needs to be built around tourism, medical services, whatever the kinds of services. Are those things possible? Do we have the capacity in Tobago and Trinidad to develop those kinds of services that can attract people to come from wherever they come from, to come to some service in Trinidad and Tobago?
Correct. And I think this is where we need to see tourism in its broader light. It's more than bed nights. Consider that tourism is every single thing a person does when they're away from home for 24 hours or even a day, like a cruise ship passenger. It means everything. It could include medical services. In fact, in Hungary and in some places, you have a dental checkup in the price of a hotel room. Whether it's medical services, whether it's environmental services, we cannot function with pure tourism alone, and we have to link other aspects. And yes, it could be done. We need to have the vision and we need to decide where we want to go. One of the things I'm seeing, even for Trinidad and Tobago, is the value of the environment. We see the environment as a problem, but really and truly, it's an opportunity. The environment has a vast value chain in it. And I think unless we start caring about our environment and really building it properly, and every single person loving this environment and wanting to protect it, we can never have a successful industry, life, tourism of any form. And this is why we need to start connecting the dots in our environment. So we may have an Airbnb, we may have a nice hotel, but we still go and dump. We still go and do all kinds of things. We still want to hunt and kill all of the animals. So we need to see the connectivity between all of those things, and we need to build a very strong value chain on the environment and start creating the employment opportunities for it. Environment is one service. It needs to be seen as one. It could be financial services. The Cayman Islands, Barbados, and many countries benefit from not only tourism, but the link between tourism and financial services. One of the things I told Bahamas 20 years ago, Barbados, the people who are buying real estate in Barbados, they're not in their 20s and 30s, they're in the 50s and the 60s. And people who buy that quality real estate, they have medical issues. The next frontier for Barbados tourism leadership is health and wellness. It could be Tobago's. It could be somebody else. So we need to link these high value added. It could be education. It could be real estate. It could be so many other things that we need to link with it to, to really make it a reality.
Okay. Rene Sipasad Singh, who is Vice President of the Association. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Antonio. And hello to everyone on the panel.
Right. So what have you heard, or what is your reaction to what you've heard so far?
Well, I mean, Dr. Poole outlined, some of the critical areas, and she's correct in regards to, many of the things. I mean, I heard the word subsidy being used, but really and truly, tourism is to Tobago what energy is to Trinidad, in spite of our challenges with energy. Let's put it in that context. Any investment that happens in any country, even if we take it out of the Caribbean sphere, in manufacturing, in energy, in any key sector identified by our government, always has incentives. I don't think the word subsidy is really an appropriate word, because really and truly incentives are to create investment and investment climate, which ultimately will end up in a return to the country or the area that it actually is located in. So you may be sacrificing, some people look at it as a sacrifice or government giving, but really and truly the objective, and that must be the objective, is to get the return. So it comes back into the coffers of the destination, and then of course to the population of the destination. Trinidad actually has quite a comprehensive Tourism Investment Act. There are quite a lot of incentives that are already in place. Oriana would have mentioned quite correctly the importance of environment, and she also would have touched on the area of the health tourism. In fact, one of the markets identified by the National Tourism Policy, which was recently done in Trinidad and Tobago, wellness was also identified. It wasn't a priority one, but it was one of them, and also educational tourism, because we actually do already have a significant amount of infrastructure, not simply in the public sector, because Trinidad actually does have a lot of investment has been made in public health institutions and education institutions, but in the private sector, Trinidad, out of many of the Caribbean destinations, actually has quite a significant amount of private healthcare facilities, where a lot of persons who are living, for example, up the islands, and they are tourists too, and elsewhere, I know of even Americans who have traveled to Trinidad for medical services because of the cost of the healthcare. So those things are very true, very correct.
Rennie,
I
you're
think,
talking about
yeah.
educational services,
Yeah.
and I don't know that Tobago is even self-sufficient for itself on its own uses and the technical skills, the educational skills, and so on. Within Tobago, after you leave
No.
secondary school, you have to come to Trinidad for something.
Yeah, yeah.
Is
Well, that's
it
why I did say
is
Trinidad.
yeah is it that Tobago will have to be continuously dependent on Trinidad for educational services? And I'm not saying that you could do a PhD in Tobago and why come to UWE or UTT? I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that you have to put something on the ground in Tobago beyond secondary school.
Well, sure. Well, I mean, if we talk in the context of it to be attract tourism, yes. I mean, like Grenada, for example, has a medical school, which is a major contributor to their tourism product too, by default, the amount of services they use. I mean, of course, we're in the age of technology, so a lot of the educational services that Tobagonians would have required to fly to Trinidad for are now readily available online. If you're talking about the average citizen, we have to be practical too. I mean, the population of Tobago at any given time is between 40,000 to 50,000 persons. And how many of those would be seeking education in terms of the national population is not going to be very significant. So whether or not it is viable, no, I'm not discouraging it, but then we're going to have to accept that is going to definitely have a level of subsidy that is required, particularly for tertiary education, because it's just it's a small population, and that's the reality you're dealing with in Tobago. But when I referred more to the educational, maybe it's not the institutional education, like a school, but the other areas, for example, sports. You have a lot of football, soccer, martial arts, swimming, a lot of training that's done by American universities, for example, although they have facilities there and in Europe, but they do come to the Caribbean. They go to destinations Oliana would have mentioned before, and they actually spend the summer or they come during the winter period for training camps and all of those areas. So that is a big market. The religious market. Unlike a lot of Caribbean destinations, both Trinidad and Tobago, because of its ethnic composition and the diversity of the religious, we have mosque, we have Hindu temples in Tobago, we have it in Trinidad. That's a huge market. There are a lot of people coming to these destinations for weddings and for events that actually are very unique to our diaspora when we compare ourselves with other destinations. You can have an East Indian wedding that sometimes has 300-400 persons. And it has happened. Our challenge though is that, and I brought this up in a recent television interview as well, that you can have all of these things. But if nobody knows about your destination or knows about it, it's not really going to make much of a difference. And we have been very poor when one considers other destinations in spreading the message. Some of the challenges that we identify, like environmental and so forth, those are critical components, but that really goes beyond the tourism product. It also is something that has to be societal, because we maintain the environment, not just the tourist stakeholders.
Yeah.
And those are
Let
things
me ask Diane Haddad from the business community, the kind of support infrastructure that is required for the tourism industry to avoid what I talked about a moment ago, is that a lot of money come in, but it goes back out on producing all of from food to all the amenities in hotels, etc., etc. The agricultural production, is that what is missing there for industrial production, agro-industrial production, agro-production in the first instance? Is the business community up to being supportive of the hotel industry?
I'm not sure the hotel industry is actually business as well. So I'm not sure why we are dividing the two. All of this is business. Tony, I want to endorse a lot of what Rennie said in terms of, and the comment is being used all afternoon, the chicken and the egg. Finally, I think under the PNM regime, under Dr. Rowley, finally, after all the fights, I think we came to a place where the recognition of the airport, which was one of the issues that we had all along, finally is here. I believe, based on what I heard Kevin say somewhere in there and Oliana, that the brands and the attraction through the marketing of those people who are already internationally known in terms of hotel and room stock, that invitation is going to help us bring it together in terms of us having the same names that he spoke about, Hilton and whoever. So whoever we bring, there will be a brand names that does marketing for you one way or the other. The farmers, the whole education, we had a very good hotel school at one time. We were training people. So we can get a lot of things back up and running, because when those people spoke about 2005 to 2008, a lot of those things were happening then. And we did see a level of success. What happened is quickly that was killed. Who was it killed by? It was killed by the politicians. It wasn't killed by the business community. Business people or people who want to invest or have to invest will continue to invest. It is not about money. It is about something in them that is deeper than money, that they want to see development and growth. There's also something about them to succeed. So when I hear we talk about what is spent and 10 cents coming back only staying on the island or whatever, have we quantified the number of families that are living off of this, that the money that is stimulated and coming back into the economy in terms of the supermarkets, in terms of restaurants, in terms of people's quality of life, family sharing time, space, energy, and love together? Do we calculate the taxes that go back into the Board of Inland Revenue?
Diane, probably 80% of what we sell in the supermarkets and groceries come from abroad.
And Tony, eventually, as time go on, we will get to that stage, because to be fair again, under Paula Gopi's school, and they were working very hard on manufacturing and getting us to go there. The thing about it has Tobago's governance decided to get Tobago to go down that road. And that is where Tobago has a special issue. However, I am saying as a country, there are responsibilities of government to ensure that there's economic movement or opportunity, and business people will invest, because they can only invest what a bank or financiers are willing to trust them with based on what is happening in the macro space. And we are missing somewhere that we still all have to go to banks, and we still have to go. And the reason people have not upgraded their properties in the hotel industry, we keep bashing them as though they are doing something wrong. I'm certain they would love to have pristine properties, but could they afford to do it if they don't have the revenue coming in? Could they afford to do it? This is an old story that we've beaten for, Renee, what now, 20 years? And we had 3 years win. And let's go before that. Let's go back to Hochoi Charles was your success story. Does that say it deep enough? Hochoi Charles was your last success story, who, and what Oliana speaks about, cleanliness and so, had the island in pristine condition. That's how far back I am speaking. So for us to just keep going around as though, why should things be subsidized? And listen, that would either be for the persons who have already made their wealth, and they're on the path to the exit story, and they have generations of money in the bank already. People who have to invest and really survive and make money now in order to contribute to the coffers of the economy have to convince financiers to support them. And truth be told, Tony and team, I do not know that we are at that stage. I honestly looked forward to the completion of the airport. We have fought for it long enough. We do know that it can take 3 million passengers passing through it for the year. I think Tobago is at a place now where, with the right invitations, as Oliana said, to the right people in terms of brands and so, offering us different levels of tourism, offering us where their name will give us the branding and marketing that we are not capable of, be it financially, or I am maybe chastised for this, or educationally whether we are at that level, because we've bantered in enough boardrooms and meetings about that, and we got nowhere. Therefore, if we don't have the finance to do it, we need to piggyback off of somebody. Other people who are in the industry all over the world made a decision, and their governments made concessions and invited people who did a good job. We need, as I said, to now cross the bridge and continue where we were at. I think we were left, unfortunately, a little too early in time. If the election was probably 6 months or 8 months down the road, Tobago may have been in a better place in terms of what would have been. But as it stands now, we can only hope that the powers that be now would understand where we were left and work towards this success, which is the final point. But I do not know, Tony, that the business community is separate to the hotel industry, because it is all business. And I want to commend the Prime Minister for putting the two ministries together, so we could stop dividing it and let us understand that one affects the other. They're all interlinked.
Okay, Diane, you introduced a point that I'm tempted to follow, but I won't, because it speaks of politics and election movement forward and so on. I'm tempted.
Tony,
but I'm not going to go there.
Tony, may I? It's okay, because it's the politicians that have us where we are today.
All right,
we
but
have
I'm not going down the road.
Fight.
Okay, so what I want to do now, which is political in itself, but a different kind of politics, is to talk about Sandals, the second time around, and is Tobago being prepared by the House of Assembly people, the Trinidad government, which reintroduced the whole notion of Sandals, is out of the way. I have not heard anything from the government in Port of Spain with regard to the Sandals stop. Neither have I heard anything from the House of Assembly. I think the last point where Mr. Augustine talked about that we are open to Sandals, but we have to have the ground being planned and be fertile to accommodate Sandals. Just before I ask everybody to come in on the Sandals question, just to note to our listeners that we are talking about tourism in Tobago. And indeed, Trinidad, I promised to ask Oliana to talk about Trinidad tourism. Oliana, after we deal with the Sandals matter, I'm going to open it up for you to talk about Trinidad and tourism. That's a promise I made to you. So I'm not a politician, so I can't go back on my promises, right? So, folks, Sandals. Let me ask Renee from the Hotels Association to lead off the discussion. Is Sandals going to be welcomed? Is it an opportunity for the development of the entire tourism industry, from what guests are served in the hotel to go to the beach, etc., etc.? What's the position of the Hotels Association with regard to Sandals?
Well, the Hotel Association supports investment in Tobago in general. Sandals, of course, is a well-known brand. It's a Caribbean brand. It's well established throughout the region. It brings with it a lot of exposure for the destination Tobago in itself. And if one looks at Grenada as maybe a more like example, with the investment of Sandals, contrary to a lot of fears that people have, it actually attracted a lot more investment in other resorts on the island of Grenada. And I know for a fact this is firsthand, so nobody needs to tell me otherwise. I spoke to several hotel owners in Tobago, in Grenada rather, about their feelings on Sandals. Sandals was about a year open, and all of them were in support of the Sandals product. They in fact felt it impacted the destination positively. It actually encouraged training. It actually increased the supply because people, because of its impact on the economy, you had the attraction of the airlift, and you had all the benefits of an investment. Now, I know we always single out Sandals because, of course, it's the name and the brand that was touted, but really and truly, it should really be seen in light of investment in general in Tobago. And before anyone jumps at it, yes, any product that has to come on the island must meet the standards that we would aim for. The environmental standards, yes, impact assessments, all of those things. To me, those are given. If you're going to do an investment, you have to do all of those things for any product that you're bringing on the destination. So to me, those are given things. But in terms of the brand Sandals, the impact it can have, the Hotel Association is in full support of it. Dan mentioned the investment in the airport, a very long overdue investment. It's quite a huge airport, so it's going to take quite a lot to make it viable. And this is just another investment that, of course, will assist in building brand Tobago and destination Tobago.
Kevin, there were two issues, two major issues. Of course, there were others, but there were two major issues surrounding Sandals. One, the venue, the space, no man's land. It was said to be off any possibility of putting up anything in the area. And the second element was that the government was being required to construct the hotel, and Sandals would simply add its name to it. I don't know if the discussions have gone that far just yet. I don't think so. They met and chatted and so on a regular kind of basis. Are those two things going to stand in the way again?
I think it all depends on how they approach it. And when you look at the main breakdown of the negotiations the last time, I think one of the missing ingredients was really involvement and communication with the people of Tobago and inclusion of the people of Tobago. And I think the approach that they need to take this time around has to be a different one. And I would like to propose an acronym for the approach that they should take: LEAP, LEEP. So they need to focus on, first, linkages. How are the other sectors going to be linked? Whether it's the environment, agriculture, how do they get all of the different sectors on board? We also need to look at empowerment. We really need to empower the communities, empower businesses, empower the owners of land and different developments that are happening in and around the area. We also have to look at the other E, which is entrepreneurship and employment. How do we really and truly ensure that Sandals being developed in Tobago will create the right kinds of entrepreneurship, and how are we empowering our local people to benefit as entrepreneurs and as employees? Because right now, THA accounts for, it's said, about 3/4 of the employment in Tobago. I don't know how true that is. I haven't seen the figures, but this is anecdotal. So the question is, do we have the amount of employees in Tobago to fill Sandals? Will they bring them from Jamaica? Will they bring them from, I don't know, the Philippines? I don't know. So we need to figure that out. But more than just the people, the employees, we really need to empower entrepreneurs. How do they benefit? And the only way we can find that out is to figure out what the Sandals need. What are some of the things that they're going to be looking for, and can we supply it? And if we can't at this point, how do we prepare ourselves to be able to supply it? And then P, of course, the final part of LEAP is partnerships. We really have to partner with the private sector, partner very importantly with the communities in and around whatever location they decide. And of course, with the people of Tobago, they have to be involved in the conversation. They have to be involved in the negotiations as well. So whether no man's land will be picked or not, I'm not sure. Whether it will be an issue, I'm not sure. But to really move forward, they have to take that approach. Linkages, empowerment, employment, entrepreneurship, and partnerships.
Well, I'm sure it makes a lot of sense, common sense, not to approach the no man's land again, because that will only return to all kinds of objections and so on. And there are other places in Tobago which I am sure are capable of hosting a hotel of that nature. I want to go to Rene before I come to Oleana. to talk about the small hotels, not only hotels, the medium-sized hotels, but rather the small hotels. Will they be disadvantaged by the presence of Sandals? And it may be Sandals now, it may be another brand name at some point in time. How does the smaller industry live with the big hotel?
Well, I mean, although Tobago has big hotels in inverted commas, I know by world standards it may not be, but the truth is when you have brands like Sandals or other brands that may come in, it certainly helps to sustain the airlift, which is a critical component. We're an island, so obviously we need to have sustainable airlift, which Tobago currently is having a challenge with. Even the existing airlift is finding it hard to be sustainable. In fact, there are subsidies that have become almost commonplace now for Tobago, where other islands have moved away from that. We're still in that situation in Tobago. So not everybody is a Sandals client. Not everybody is a Four Seasons client. Not everybody is a Grafton client. Not everybody is a Cocoa Reef client. There are people that, for example, Tobago is well known. We have the community of Castara that has its own community there that's thriving. There are different markets, particularly a destination like Tobago, which is still very virgin compared to many destinations. I think there's a market for many different types of tourists, and having a Sandals will not compete with the smaller guys, because that's simply somebody who's going to go to a small property or even a small luxury property or a mom and pop type of operation or bed and breakfast. That is the client. They're going to go there. They're not going to go to the Sandals. So really and truly, is there room? There is room, but I mean, Kevin did bring some fair points. The destination also has to be prepared.
I suppose I was going to talk about if Sandals, not if Sandals will be advertising and promoting their Tobago destination, and I suppose the destination as a whole in Tobago stands to benefit from a Sandals or one of the other Hiltons or whatever the big brand names are. Yes,
they do. They do. In fact, they're very well known for that. I mean, yes, they will zero in on their brand, but they do a lot of destination promotion as well. And let's face it, as much as we hope that we're going to make some drastic changes in how we treat with tourism, the reality is we still have very limited budgets. In fact, we don't even know what the budgets are likely to even be, given what they have been in the last couple of years. So it'll also be an opportunity to capitalize, on other investors' strengths.
Oliana, Sandals coming to Tobago, good thing, bad thing, not important thing. Your take on it?
You need to unmute.
Unmute, Oliana.
Sorry. Tobago positions itself right now as beyond ordinary, which means it's extraordinary. And my question simply is, will a Sandals coming to Tobago make Tobago ordinary or extraordinary? A question. Sandals is also an all-inclusive resort. I think Kevin is right. We need to prepare the population, because I know that when Club Med established in St. Lucia, one of the St. Lucians built a restaurant, expecting guests to come to the restaurant, but it was all inclusive. So everything happens in the hotel. Now, all inclusives were developed specifically in Jamaica because of a problem with, it wasn't safe. So people went into an environment where everything was provided. Fine. The question is, and that was developed in the 80s. We're in 2025. Is it possible that we can do a different type of development where you have an all-inclusive island where people feel comfortable going out and doing all of the things they want to do on an island because they don't have to be locked up in a hotel? It's a question that we need to be looking at. I mean, I love Bud Stewart. I think it's a great innovation, but is it for Tobago? And is it the only option? I mean, I'm not seeing any other people lining up or in negotiations to set up in Tobago. So I'm not sure whether it's the only one or whether that is the one for Tobago, but it's questions that I think we need to ask. I want to raise a point that early on that Diana made, that I think when Hotel Charles was in, the place was clean. I think the problem we have in Tobago is that we have to realize that tourism is not just in the hotels and about the hotels and outside. It's about every single person and citizen. Tourism is everybody's business, just like the environment. So we cannot claim to have a clean and green and serene Tobago if the government is cleaning up after us. We cannot claim to have a really successful tourism destination where the only people who are smiling to you are the people who are paid to smile. It has to be an entire sense of welcome. The people have to want tourism for it to succeed. The people have to feel it. And I can give you an example. I went to Dominica and I saw a lady with some avocados and I wanted to find, well, where did she buy them? You know what she did? She took me by the hand and carried me. Nobody paid her, but is a sense and a feel. And if we want to be successful, I'm simply saying it's not just about air access. It's not just about marketing. It's not just about physical plant. It's the feel that we have to cultivate. We have to cultivate a culture of welcome, of we wanting to have guests in our space, in our environment. And we don't want it to be destroyed because we want our children and grandchildren to come and enjoy those kinds of things. But we have to be bold-faced enough to say, listen, guys, this is where we are going. This is our plan. Come and invest with us. Rather than everything open and we like chicken licking, waiting for the mule to fall on our heads.
Oliana, am I hearing you saying something about an old culture? The culture of the colonial, and even before the colonial, the slavery and indentureship period that still lingers on. And we have a notion about the tourists and we have a disposition to the tourists, which is sometimes not helpful. Is that still hanging around in the atmosphere somewhere?
I think that is, it may be hanging around in some old people or something like that. But I think when you consider that we have a lot of events and the tourists who are coming are us, you know, it's not like us and them kind of thing. So, I mean, I think Tobago has had, you know, a great experience of having our own come as tourists rather than just having two different types of travelers. But I think it's a sense of just as how we treat the environment. We don't really care. And that is the problem. The quality of the environment, the quality of our service cannot be delegated to somebody else. We have to own it. And how do we inculcate that sense of ownership? It's my island, it's my country. I want to see it clean. I'm not going to dump. I'm not going to wait for somebody to pick up after me. That is the kind of transformation that we need to make. And when you think about the environment itself, I can tell you the opportunities to create wealth from recycling, repurposing, reusing. The environmental consultants are the highest paid in the world. Research on the environment, tourism, and all of those things. Let us start seeing other kinds of opportunities from tourism, linked to tourism, and our beautiful environment. It's not just about serving a plate in a restaurant.
All right, let me go to Diane Haddad, the business, non-tourism business, but still business, because obviously if you're selling a shoe, the possibilities that tourists might come in and buy a shoe for whatever reason. Is the business community going to be geared up for the likes of Sandals? And I'm using Sandals as a possibility now, but it might be Hilton, it might be some other hotel, big brand name coming in at some point in time. Can the business community meet the need that Sandals will obviously bring to the island?
Tony, let me say I had the privilege of sitting in the room with the meeting with Sandals, the last meeting when Stuart Young was the Prime Minister. I want to clean up on what Kevin said. Their approach is your leap approach. They are very much, I am sorry that the presentation that Adam did was not, the time wasn't there for the country to see it. It was phenomenal. For the short part that we saw, it was long enough to catch everything we needed to see. But they actually have a training program where they train 35,000 persons a year for free as their give back. So that is only part of it. I want to get to the investment part of it and they talk about no man's land or who's ever land. No man's land, if I go now, no man's land has been destroyed over the years by parties, barbecues, boats, limboing, everything that goes on there in a very unstructured manner. And no man's land has been destroyed. So I'm not sure all the people who come out and fight about no man's land and all the environments, when they are not there, as Oleana said, keeping the environment as a personal responsibility. So it shouldn't be because sandals or slippers or boots or high heels or anybody's coming, all of a sudden we are environmentalists. We really should be protecting no man's land right through. I remember 1982, 1985, we had to get a key to go through a gate in order to get to no man's land. We could not have gone to no man's land just like that. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry gets on a boat and just goes over there and fills the place and leaves it like that. So again, government has failed to secure and ensure that systems and procedures are in place under the pretense that we'll take care of you is all right. I've heard it in meetings. When last I checked, I need them to vote for me. And therefore, we leave those things to deteriorate to where they are today. We need to stop picking on, and in the meeting, Adam in his presentation did say that they have 6 investments going on now as we speak, 5 of which they have done full investment themselves. 1 is a partnership or something, and they had 1 or 2 more on the table that they were being invited for. So again, as I'm saying, we in Trinidad and Tobago have to start to decide, and you know, it's really ironic that universally the oil has to be taken away, the gas has to be, everything has to be taken away for us to realize that we need to change our behavior and our thinking. That's sad. So we have to lose 1 in order to work on 1. For years, we've been speaking about working on all of it. And just as Oleana just spoke about the environment and the attitudes, that is, again, part of the mix. We have to add that to all the other things that Kevin and Renee and Mr. McLean and everybody spoke about for the tourism experience. Now, there are people who go for tourism just if there's a flight going, because I want to see the world. I don't necessarily want to go in an all-inclusive. But if the flights are being filled, then it means that the frequency of the flight becomes more, so I have more options as a tourist. And the price is one that will go within margins that tourists can afford, some people can afford. And therefore, the opportunity to go to the place is there for all and sundry, not necessarily who can afford. In Sandals, in the presentation for all-inclusive, in fact, Adam said that their experience now over the years, in the last 10-year shift, has seen that people are not, they have different options for people to book. You can book all-inclusive, you can book partial, which is breakfast only or whatever, and therefore you come in and you go out to eat. So I think that what has not happened, the approach this first time around was wrong. This time, they didn't have the time to probably get to the country, the people. But I think before we go speaking all about it, I think we need to allow them to do their presentation and bring all of the answers to all of the things that we are just talking about, because it actually is in the presentation. And
Diane,
if anybody...
question to you. The business community, can it fall in line with the needs of a big hotel like
Tony,
Sandals?
Tony, we couldn't fall in line to supply the airport with anything. But what happened is the people who are on the airport project, there were jobs for locals under the subcontractors. There were things that they needed that was on island that would have been supplied, right? There were certain paints and things that people did get business. It may not have been a reflection straight in Tobago, but Trinidad would have been able to supply straight from manufacturing plants and so, right? Whether it was paint, whether it was paintbrushes, whatever it is, there were people. And then the very people who are here, who are now having jobs and income, are spending more. So the sun was hot, they were thirsty all day. You saw an increase in sales of drinks and things like that. You saw them spending money to go and buy clothes in the mall. So that is not fair to say because we can't supply them that we should not invite them. The money will trickle eventually. We have to know how big we are and how small we are in business. And you will get according to your level of business. After that, it is you to take the risk, have your things in order, and go face your bankers and come up with your proposal for how you fit into the big scheme of things after that. But we have to have a start.
All right, fair enough. Oleana, tourism in Trinidad. Kind of somebody said earlier, the oil we have, those spoil. There's a calypso on it. I'm trying to remember the lyrics of it, but we know that if the oil is not spoiling, it certainly isn't there in the kind of quantities which made the whole country benefit back in the periods, the 3 or 4 oil price increases over the last 30, 40 years, and the whole country benefited from that, not in perhaps the way that we should have, but that's another story we should learn from. So tell us something, Oleana, about the possibilities for tourism in Trinidad.
Well, I believe that Trinidad has an amazing, amazing possibility to really develop tourism in a major way. I think you have the population, you have the rural communities, you have people able and willing. I mean, just the Hyatt can actually testify to the level of service that is actually possible. I think Trinidad has the possibility to link tourism with education, with medical services. And I think once we stop seeing tourism as flat, white, sandy beaches and the fact that the wild coast or the rough coast is actually more healthy. And you can actually build facilities and services that actually support it. There's so much to do, so much to see, so much to engage in, the nature, the adventure, the birding. I mean, there are just tons of opportunities to do that. And the tour guides, the tour operators, I know that that the cruise passengers are a start, but I think you can have a lot of hotel plant and opportunities in Trinidad. Trinidad is a bigger, huger destination, and it can mop up a lot of employment and create enormous amounts of foreign exchange.
Yes,
It
well,
needs to be targeted.
We have a new Minister of Trade and Tourism in place, and he's someone who has decades of experience as a successful manufacturer and exporter, and I presume he will bring a different kind of perspective to the whole business of tourism and trade, both of them linked together. We haven't talked a lot about developing the capacity. I think the last Minister of Trade had a notion of developing the capacity of the manufacturing sector. And from the figures that were given the last time, something was happening there. In fact, I was talking or attempting to get the head of the CEO of the Manufacturers Association to get on this program, but he's off to Jamaica with a trade show and so on. So something is happening in that kind of industry. Let me give the two other persons, Renee Sipasad Singh and Kevon Wilson, an attempt, your last words. The women, you know, we had to come back a little bit from the women having the last say, right? So let me let the two gentlemen have the last say on this matter. I'm sure one of them is going to interrupt you and getting the last say, but start. Kevon.
Okay, great. I think my last words, I would say, I remember a line from Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And I think one of the things we really need to focus on is having a real concrete vision for tourism. And that is a vision that does not just sit on the minister's desk or the permanent secretary's desk, but it is a vision that is disseminated and transmitted to the private sector, to all government officials, to all communities, even at the community level. We all need to know where we are heading with tourism. And I had a look at the tourism policy for Trinidad and Tobago. It was a lovely policy, but I just couldn't figure out where we're really heading. What is the differentiating factor between our policy and a policy of any other country? So really and truly, what is that vision? Where are we going? And how are we going to get there? And how does that vision translate into the specific concrete actions that the government is taking, that the private sector is taking for development, for attracting investment? And yes, I'm also happy that tourism, investment, and trade have been put together, because I think they all go hand in hand. Tourism is about business. And look at what's happening at Chagaramas. I mean, the CDA is doing some fantastic things in building a destination within the destination, and it is not even part of the Ministry of Tourism. But they have a plan, they have a focus, they have a vision. So we really and truly need to get with the program and focus and be targeted and have a concrete vision that everyone is rallying around.
Penny, your last words.
Okay, well, it's timely that Kevin just said all of that, followed by Dr. Poon, because you may or may not be aware, but I've been actively involved in the tourism sector in Trinidad in the last 2 years. So I'm very familiar. In fact, I was also involved in the creation of the National Tourism Policy. So I'm very well aware of it. And Oliana said what I said at the beginning. The truth is, Trinidad actually, as a destination, and Trinidad and Tobago, but if you talk about Trinidad, has practically all the components already in place for a successful tourism product. And in fact, we recently, the Tobago Hotel Association, although our name says Tobago, we have Trinidad members. And in fact, we have been working a lot more closely with Trinidad. And a foreign-based hotelier mentioned that having worked on many of the Caribbean islands, he is quite impressed with the level of infrastructure and the variety that existed already in Trinidad. And for those of you who are not aware, Trinidad is actually doing far better than Tobago in tourism. In fact, we have a growth rate of on average about 16% recent numbers. We have about 4 hotel projects already, shovel ready, already stud tuned. So there's a lot of investment there. But what Kevin mentioned really does tie into the challenge as to why we have not yet jumped over the finish line. Unfortunately, government policy up until now has been, the plans are there. We have all the community connection already. In fact, Tourism Trinidad is already working with a lot of the communities already. Our problem is implementation and consistency. We change governments, we change ministers, and then we just change policy midstream. You can't do that. You have to be following some level of path. And implementation is our challenge. We have investment acts, we have plans and all of that, but we really need now, and the minister touched it when he was interviewed on his swearing in, we need to cut the bureaucracy. But the bureaucracy is what has been killing our development of our product.
All right. Well, folks, we want to thank you very much for being part of the discussion. It's not the first, it's not going to be the last. We will have to continue talking about it, and maybe if we shout loud enough, somebody in office will hear. And I know somebody who wants to shout loud about the station right now. Sir Charles. Sir Charles is in the business of attracting listeners and viewers and so on. And so this is your opportunity, Charles, to bring on your spiel about advertisement, the requirement for us to continue discussion. Sir Charles?
Thank you very much, Tony. So, to all these stakeholders who are on the platform, seeing that you all are so connected to Tony, we will definitely like to have you and your business on board, and we look forward to doing that with you guys.
Okay. Wonderful. So, Chalo, tomorrow, what we are talking about? We have a good program tomorrow. I have lined up some people of the 80 plus years, even one person who is 92 or 93. Sometimes I think we need a new injection into our lives in Trinidad and Tobago, and perhaps you can learn something from these 80-year-olds plus and 90-year-olds plus. To come to give us a sense of how they live. Sometimes it might be the neighbor next door. Nowadays, you don't have a neighbor, your neighbor might be abandoned, but let me leave it there. So we have a number of people to talk about share those kinds of experiences with us, and we will see how that will go. Right, Chalo?
Okay, no problem. I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the stakeholders for being on board this afternoon. People, this has been your afternoon drive time exchange right here on New Era TT Radio.
Camaraderie so special, like natural instinct.